Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is the Cook Along podcast. I am going to do something a little crazy today. I've never done this before, and I may regret it partway through, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to cook an entire meal with you, and here's the caveat to that. I am going to separate it into different podcasts. So in order for you to make the entire meal with me, you're going to have to look for the separate pieces and listen to those individually, because I don't want to overwhelm you with a podcast that's way too long. So here is what the meal is going to consist of. We're going to do an oven-roasted chicken shawarma, recipe from the New York Times. We're going to do a naan, that's N-A-A-N, that's a kind of flatbread that I think comes from America's Test Kitchen, although it came out of a magazine and I took a photo of it. Remember the days when you had to sneak out of the doctor's office with the page you torn out of the magazine? You don't have to do that anymore, so I have a photo of it here. And I picked this one in particular because most of the recipes that I have, or even when I went searching online, they all use yeast and they have rising times, and I didn't want to mess with any of that. So I'm going to use this one, which does not have a rising time. It has a sort of short resting time, but it doesn't use yeast. And so that's the main dish and the bread. I'm going to make a smashed cucumber salad to go with it. That is just extraordinary, really nice, and has only like four ingredients, and they're super simple. And then if I have time and still any energy left, I'm also going to make some hummus. Those will all be found on your podcast feed or on the cookalongpodcast.com website. When I have finished them all, you'll find this same introduction at the beginning of all of those recipes. And I'm going to start here right now with the chicken shawarma because it has to marinate for a while, and I want to give it enough time to do that. Your ingredients for this recipe are, by the way, this will make 4 to 6 servings, okay? I suppose it depends on how much you eat and how much stuff you serve along with it. 2 lemons, a half cup plus a tablespoon of olive oil, 6 cloves of garlic, a teaspoon of kosher salt, 2 teaspoons of freshly ground black pepper, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 2 teaspoons of paprika, a half teaspoon of turmeric, a pinch of ground cinnamon, some crushed red pepper flakes, and that'll be to taste, so you get to decide how hot it is. You need 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, a large red onion. I'm not using that. I'm going to use a sweet onion. Same sort of idea. You're going to quarter it, and so it doesn't get mixed in with anything. It's just how it roasts up. And 2 teaspoons of chopped fresh parsley. That's your ingredient list for this part of dinner. Your equipment for the oven-roasted chicken shawarma is a large bowl, a whisk, a rimmed sheet pan. And your do-aheads are to preheat your oven to 425 degrees. Well, no, you don't want to do that. Never mind. Ignore that. Because you don't do that until you're about to cook it. And all we're doing right now at this minute is creating the marinade and getting the chicken into it. Eventually, when you're ready to cook, you're going to start your oven preheating to 425 degrees early enough that it's ready to put these in shortly before you want to eat. And you want to juice your lemons. 2 lemons juiced. It should be about 4 to 5 tablespoons of lemon juice. The recipe isn't specific. It just says 2 lemons. So there you go. That's all the stuff you need to prep. As always, I recommend pulling all that stuff together and having it ready to go. Your spices are all going to go in at one time, so you don't need to worry about keeping them separate if you want to put them all in a small bowl together. They're actually just going all into the marinade. And actually, since we're talking about that, let's just do it. This says to put it in a bowl. I am tempted to put it instead into a plastic bag. Yes, I am going to do that. So I'm replacing the large bowl and the whisk with a good quality Ziploc bag. And I am just going to put all of these ingredients for the marinade into the bag. And then I'm going to zip it closed and shake it rather than whisking it. So in here goes the lemon juice. So I'm going to juice them right here in front of you. And now that I'm looking at this, it seems a little crazy because having no clear direction, I have 2 really big lemons here. And I don't actually know how much of this I'm going to need. Needless to say, this is my first time making this. So we are experimenting together. Well, one of these is sort of started a little bit. I've used part of it for juice in an earlier recipe today. So let's just see what happens. I'm squeezing this. Wow, yeah, that's probably, wow. Yeah, this is going to be quite a lot of lemon juice, but it's part of a marinade. I think that's why it doesn't matter, because you're going to end up throwing it out anyway. All right, I'm going to call that good. And that goes into the plastic bag. And that, being acidic, will help to tenderize the chicken and make it juicy like that. That's a good thing. Then you want your olive oil in there. And it's just the half a cup, okay? The half a cup. The other tablespoon that I told you about, we'll use later. That is for greasing the pan. Just a half a cup of your olive oil into the bag or the bowl. Then you're going to take your 6 cloves of garlic and we're going to smash them. Oh, these are teeny. I hate that. I really hate that. Okay. Wow. Oh, something here. There's one that's almost reasonable. And then I'm going to have to use the rest of these teeny ones in order to make up what I guesstimate to be 6. I try to buy heads of garlic that clearly have larger cloves, but I don't always succeed at that because I don't always do my own shopping. I most often use the grocery store pickup, so I tell them to look for large cloves or what seem to be large cloves, but that doesn't mean it always works just so. So what we're going to do with these cloves of garlic, they have a dry, flat end that was attached to the head. Cut that off with a sharp knife, and then we're going to smash each of these with the blade of the knife. So put the flat of the knife on one of the cloves of garlic and push down. You can do this with your bare hand as well. I've done it that way. Sometimes having the surface of the knife is more helpful. And then those skins are just going to come right off of these garlic. And they get discarded. Meanwhile, back on your cutting board, you're going to put the flat of your knife on the clove of garlic again and smash it till it's really flat. And do that with all of the cloves of garlic. Just really flat, almost smeared flat to the cutting board. And that will make them easier to mince because now it's sort of flat and it's easier to cut up. So now cut it with the knife really small. Another way to do this is to use a garlic press. I've mentioned many times that America's Test Kitchen doesn't mince garlic anymore. I don't know why I am doing it today. It just happened. Because usually I do what they do and just put it in a garlic press and squish it out. And those little bits that come out are about the right size for mincing anyway, and you don't have to do all this chopping business. But something must have moved me today to chop garlic. Okay, there we go. Once it's all chopped small, which won't take long because you smashed it first, you dump that into the bowl or the plastic bag as well. And then your kosher salt. Freshly ground pepper is 2 teaspoons. That's probably good. And then your 2 teaspoons of cumin. Your paprika, which is 2 teaspoons also. your half teaspoon of turmeric, and be careful with this stuff because it stains like the dickens. At any point, if you get this on you, it will stain your clothing. It was used for years as a dye, and for good reason. And then a pinch of cinnamon. Just a pinch. That was kind of a big pinch, but that's okay. Cinnamon is never a bad thing. And then the crushed red pepper. Regular red pepper flakes. I am going light on this because I'm a wimp. I don't like things really hot, but I do want to have a little in here. And especially since it's not going right on the chicken, it's going in the marinade. Seems like a good idea. You can use the full amount of whatever moves you. And I'm going to stir these together. And this also goes into the bag or bowl, that whole mix. Now, if you have it in a bowl, you're going to want to whisk. If you have it in a Ziploc bag like me, you're going to want to close that really carefully. And we're just going to shake it and mix it up. The whisk, obviously, you're mixing that stuff all together. All right, and then, I guess this is actually a do-ahead, but I couldn't tell you that because it's a marinade, but it is a do-ahead. The chicken goes into that bag now. And it needs to be in that bag for at least an hour. And it can be up to 12 hours depending on what your time frame looks like. I figure it's not that big of a deal when you can get away with just an hour on it. So your boneless, skinless chicken thighs are going right into that marinade. If your chicken was frozen to start with, like mine was, you want to break it apart as much as you can to create as much surface space as possible. And if you've got that in a bowl, make sure that all the chicken is coated with the sauce and put a cover over it of some sort, a lid or some plastic wrap or a towel, and put it in the refrigerator where it's going to sit for at least an hour. If you got it in the plastic bag, you can just turn it. I would say if you have it in a bowl, you might want to stir it every once in a while. And in the plastic bag, just every time you open the refrigerator, turn the bag over a little bit and get a new side up. I am doing this at about 12:15 in the afternoon, and I have some errands to go run. So I'm going to go take care of that, and we're going to let the chicken soak while we do that, and then come back. Or actually, if you're making the whole dinner with me, we're going to go to a different recipe. We'll start working on the naan and the cucumber salad and the hummus, all those things. Go take a break while your chicken marinades, and I will see you back here when we're ready to cook it. All right, my friends, back to the oven roasted chicken shawarma. At this point, you want to turn your oven on to preheat. It needs to go to 425 degrees. And my oven takes a really long time to get there, but I'm going to go ahead and move along, and we'll pause later when we need to do that. So turn that oven on, and then get yourself a rimmed baking sheet. It's just like a cookie sheet that has edges to it. The recipe says to use a little olive oil to grease that pan. I'm going to recommend you don't do that because olive oil has a very low smoke point, and I think you'll smoke up your kitchen. And so I'm going to use canola oil and just put about 2 tablespoons of it on this baking sheet, and then use my hand to spread that around so that everything is greased on this pan. Oh, and now I have to wash that off. Alrighty, so now the baking sheet is greased and my hands are not. And at this point, we're going to take the onion. Remember I told you needed a red onion and that I was using a sweet one. And you want to cut it up. So what we're doing here is you want to cut that onion in quarters. So just start at the root end and just cut it in 4 pieces. I am saving the very bottom where the roots are, because if you plant this, it will grow a new onion. So I'm taking that little bit of root that's already sort of starting to sprout because I've had this cut for a bit in my refrigerator, and I am going to put that in a little bowl and a little water and put the onion root down, and there we go. Just set it aside because it's of no use to anybody till it starts sprouting. Now, the onion, quarter the rest, 4 big pieces. All right. And then get your chicken out. Been in the refrigerator marinating. Mind plastic bag, your bowl, however you did it. And what we're going to do is just add the onion to the chicken and marinade. So this will be actually easier if you're doing it in a bowl, probably. You're just going to put it in there and stir it a bit. I'm going to put it in my Ziploc bag and close that up. And then you can toss your sauce and your onions, and I'm going to toss my plastic bag. And just toss it once to combine that. And then, chicken with the onions and the marinade. I'm going to take the chicken out of the marinade and put it onto the pan. So just fish it out of there. I got a little more marinade left here than I meant to, but I don't think it'll hurt being on this tray. Oh, it smells really good. Spread those out until they're all distributed on the tray. And that is all we have to do, and it's ready to go in. So for those of you making this full dinner, what you may or may not have noticed and appreciated is that although we're doing 4 different things to get this meal on the table, 4 different dishes, each dish is easy in and of itself. There's nothing hard or long. The longest part is marinating, and everything else that we've done here today has been pretty quick. The salad comes together in about 5 minutes. The hummus comes together in about 5 minutes. The chicken, once you get it in the refrigerator to marinate, you don't have to do anything else except put it on the tray to cook. That's pretty quick and easy. And this just has to sit here now because my oven isn't ready. But here's what you're going to do. You got your chicken spread out across the pan and your onions as well. Spread evenly across the pan, and then that is going to go in the oven. As soon as the oven reaches 425 degrees, we're going to put that in the oven where it's going to cook for probably 30 to 40 minutes, at which point the edges should start to be a little crisp and the chicken should start to be cooked through. All right? When you've got it to that point, take your tray out of the oven and let it just sit there for about 2 minutes, and then come back and we'll finish it up. Meanwhile, if you are doing the rest of this dinner when this goes in the oven, you're going to make your salad and we're going to finish up the naan. So I'm just going to go away until the oven tells me it's hot enough. And then pop this in, take it out, let it rest its 2 minutes, and then come back to you. All right, you've had your time in there, and now just pull it out of the oven. You can turn your oven off. We don't need to go back in there. It is pretty blackened, which is not a terrible thing, except when it sets off the fire alarm. I do that quite a lot in my house. We have a lot of fire alarm moments. I have to let it rest 2 minutes, but let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give it those 2 minutes, and then we're going to take the chicken off of there, and maybe the onions too. I haven't decided yet, and we're going to slice them into little tiny bits. Now, some people like their chicken shawarma crispy. If you want that, you have to pop it into a frying pan after you slice it up and crisp it up on the stovetop. I don't think I care about that. In fact, I don't think I really want it crispy. Just crispy on the edges is fine. And I now have a little bit of homegrown parsley that I am going to chop up to garnish this with. And parsley, of course, does have a flavor, and so that will be nice as well. And besides, I grew it in my yard, and I kind of love that. Plus, it was from last year. This is last year's parsley when it just really almost didn't come up at all. And now I have this nice big strong plant for something that's supposed to be only an annual. I am chopping the parsley into small bits because I don't have very much of it, and I want to be sure that it goes to all the chicken. All right, I think I'm going to pretend that was 2 minutes. I don't think it really was, but here I am pretending. So taking the chicken off of that tray. You know what? The onions too. What the heck? Let's just chop it all tiny. Get it all over onto the cutting board, including some of this blackened sauce, I think, because why not? Some of us like burned things. Sorry about the noise. That is the price of doing cooking business on a podcast. So I've just made a pile of it here on my cutting board. Almost finished. One more piece of chicken. 2 more onions. All right. And I'm just going to slice up this pile into bits. I don't know about slicing. It's more like chunking. It smells really good. I'm tempted to put a little more of this marinade on here. Looks pretty good. Taste an onion. Yeah, I think it needs more marinade, and I think it needs more salt. Well, we're adding the cucumbers with the feta to it, so I'm not going to worry about that. I am going to put this in a serving bowl. There we go. And I'm going to add a little of the marinade that's left. And the parsley over the top. I'm taking a picture for you. The picture will be on the website, thecookalongpodcast.com. As you know, this looks very nice. It's going to be lovely with the other goodies that are scheduled to go with it here. I'll stir the parsley in just a bit. There. Yeah, truly. Beautiful. Excellent. All right. Thank you for sticking with me through the making of this whole meal. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed doing this with you. I hope you enjoy the meal or whatever parts of it you chose to make along with me. And until next time, happy cooking!